Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone is seated. So we are now beginning our symposium. I am your host, Bradley Appling, member of the Board of Directors of the Germantown Spiritist Society. On behalf of the Spiritist Societies of Maryland, I would like to welcome everyone to our fourth Spiritist Symposium. We are happy to announce it is being broadcast live on Facebook via the Spiritist Societies of Maryland and the YouTube channel, the Spiritist Network. Thank you for being a part of this event in person and remote. Every couple of years, the Spiritist Societies of Maryland sponsor a symposium with the purpose of discussing and exchanging knowledge and insights on a chosen theme from the Spiritist viewpoint. This year's theme is moral transformation. For those new to Spiritism, it is a progressive body of knowledge, a spiritualist philosophy focused on the education of the immortal spirit. Spiritism was established in France in the mid-19th century by the French educator Hippolyte Léon Denisard Rivail, also known as Allan Kardec. Within Spiritism, three aspects must be in alignment: the philosophical thought, the scientific knowledge, and Jesus' moral teachings. Within Spiritism, religion is understood as conduct, as moral aspect, as living practice, and Jesus' moral teachings as a universal moral code. The human desire for constant improvement in all areas of human knowledge is in our nature. We seek self-improvement, thus the theme of this symposium. It is Spiritist practice to pray when we gather, so I would like to invite all of you to the initial prayer. For where two or more are gathered in my name, there am I in the midst of them. That was the promise of our divine Master Jesus, certain of his presence and the presence of the spiritual mentors and benefactors of our Spiritist societies. Our hearts are filled with gratitude for all the blessings we are about to receive. In an afternoon of learning, enlightenment, and friendship, nourishing our souls for a better understanding of moral transformation, may we return to our daily lives renewed and inspired. May we always be deserving of your presence. Now, I call upon our Master of Ceremony, who will present our program this afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Appling. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amanda Soto, and I am your MC for this afternoon. Our program today will consist of 3 presentations, followed by a coffee break and a panel discussion at the end. And before we start, just a few housekeeping items. As our event is being streamed live and recorded, we ask that everyone minimize noise and side conversations and be mindful not to cross in front of the camera located back there. We apologize for the very loud air conditioning. The Germantown Community Library offers free Wi-Fi and no password is required. However, we would appreciate it if you could silence your phones during the event. If you have any questions for the speakers, please wait until the panel discussion at the end. And you will also be receiving a survey about today's event at Please note that the room has 4 special exits for emergencies. And last but not least, restrooms are located in the opposite side of the corridor. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker of the day, Ms. Lia Gouveia, with the Transformation Begins in Self-Discovery. Ms. Gouveia is an active member of the Spiritist Society of North Beach since its incorporation in 2009, simultaneously serving as Program Director, Communications Director, and Vice President. Ms. Gouveia holds a Bachelor in Computer Sciences and is working as a Senior Enterprise Applications Manager in the food industry. Please join us in welcoming Ms. Gouveia.
Good afternoon, dear friends. Ms. Gouveia is so serious, so you know I'm Lia, and I'm very happy to be here with you today. While we have our dear friend here help me opening the presentation. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Okay, so let me start saying, just tell me if I'm too close. Okay. Let me start saying that I feel very honored and happy to be here among dear friends, friends that I have been known for a few years in this lifetime, but spirits that for sure we have lived multiple lives before, and we encounter again to fulfill a very beautiful task, which is really to talk about the messages of the spirits. These messages that are so dear to our hearts because we need hope, we need consolation, and we need to be united and working together for the purpose of this dissemination. Today is a very beautiful day, not just because it's sunny outside, but because we have people here from 4 different Spiritist centers of Maryland working together, for the same purpose, the unification and dissemination of Spiritism. It's not an easy task, because we are invited to really work together, to face our differences, to be patient and tolerant with one another. But together we realize that we can do more, we can be stronger. And we are having the 4th Spiritist Symposium of Maryland. So we are repeating over and over again because we do need, to educate our hearts, educate our minds, and then spread these messages to the ones in need from both realms of life. So the subject of this year is the transformation power within. This power that we all have as spirits, as immortal spirits, to transform, to transcend, to become better. And by becoming better, we can also help others to become better. So it's a very important task. And I would like to say that even though I'm the one here in front of you, your participation is really very, very important because we are here building a big puzzle and each piece is important. Otherwise, this puzzle will not be complete. So we count on your active participation, not only with questions, with comments, but with your good hearts, with your thoughts, with your good vibes and energy, so I can deliver here what I have compiled from the spirits and do not, change the content, the beautiful content, due to my own limitations. So, it's interesting that different speakers, without being together, put together presentations with a symbol of a butterfly, which it's very tiny creatures that can actually teach us so much. Because if you are familiar with the different phases of a butterfly, they really need time and effort to transform, to undergo a metamorphosis. And when you look this picture, this image here, what do you see? We see beauty, we see power, we see perfection, we see growth, and this is what we would like to represent and symbolize in our study today. So then we continue with the butterfly symbol and image, because image can tell us things that sometimes our words cannot say, So the topic we are going to discuss is transformation begins in self-discovery. And here we have put a timeline, time and effort, and self-discovery in the beginning and transformation at the end. So if we make analogy between the butterfly and ourselves, is very similar. So we can really learn with this small but very beautiful creature. Yes, when we are a small caterpillar, we need to get to know ourselves. We need to know who we are, what our potential to become better, and then we need to go different phases of our evolutionary path in order to transform, in order to become beautiful, perfect, and have a purpose. And if we look deeper, we can actually think about our different life experiences, our lifetimes. And there are lives that is going to maybe not look so beautiful, but we know that there is a potential in us to become beautiful. So the invitation is for us, each one of us, to identify not only what we need to transform, but for the better, but also what we have already inside of us, that it is already accomplished, that we can share with others. So we start asking, who are we? And we learn through Spiritism that we are much more than a physical body. So the person that you see here is just the body that I am using right now. It's a garment. It is my cocoon, if you make analogy with the butterfly. It's just a very superficial part of myself that you see, but I am much more than this personality. I'm much more than my ego. I am a spirit. And as a spirit, I have a divine seed inside of me to transform, to improve, to become perfect, like the same analogy with the butterfly. So the same way that when the little caterpillar knows what to do in order to improve, we also know what to do in order to improve. But it requires time and effort. We need to do our part in order to be transformed. So if we are spirits and we have a divine seed, a spiritual essence, we need to live as divine beings. We need to live as spirits and not live, as we are only a physical body, because the physical body, which is material, it changes with time, and we are going to lose as we age, as we become sick, as we die. But the beautiful message of Spiritism tells us that we actually do not die. Our physical body stays here, is recycled, but we keep living. And if we keep living, we keep progressing, we keep loving. Therefore, our loved ones are not lost. They are connected to us, just in a different dimension. They went back to their old house, spiritual house, because we actually do not belong to this world. We belong to the world of the spirits, because we are spirits. So here, I will not have time to go very much into details, but what I would like to tell us, do not forget that you are an immortal being, that you do not die, that no one dies, that you are much more than your physical appearance, the personality you are living now, and you have inside of you the divine potential to become beautiful and perfect one day. I went too fast. So I have mentioned that the process of self-knowledge and self-transformation is not only to make better, our current state, but also to recognize what we already have in us, what type of talents or gifts we have. So I'd like to start with this quote by the famous Spanish painter, Pablo Picasso, who once said, "The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away." So we all have gifts in us that we already accomplished, that we already developed. But as a gift is something that we need to offer to others, is not to just keep for us. And each one of us here has a different type of talent, different gifts, because we are different. And diversity is part of our humanity. Everyone is different and perfect in essence. Okay? So let's share your gifts. And also like to bring this message by the Spirit Joana de Angelis through the mediumship of Divaldo Franco in this book, Self-Discover, An Inner Search. And she tells us, without a spiritual view on the physical existence, life itself would remain without sense of meaning. If you want to have a purpose in life, a meaningful life, we need to focus in our spirit, in us is spirit, and not in our material side. We are spiritual beings living a material experience, a material existence, but we are not the shell. We are not the garment. We are not the personality that we see. Therefore, we are much deeper inside of us, and we need to search for it. So the process of self-discovery, it is an inner search. It requires time. It requires effort. Okay? So when we talk about sharing our gifts, sharing our talents, we relate to Jesus' teachings, and on this, what we call as the parable of the talents, explained on the Gospel of Matthew. And the parable tells us the importance of not hide our talents, but share with others. And if you share with others, you are going to have a purpose in life. You are not going to have a life without meaning. You're not going to feel empty. Okay? And I'm going to bring this message by this spirit, Jean, who communicated in Bordeaux, France, on the year 1861, but which tells us so much about this parable of the talents and the importance of sharing our gifts. He tells us, all of you who can produce something, give, and who cannot produce something, right, dear friends? Give off your talents. Give off your inspirations. Give off your hearts, which God will bless. So discover inside of you your talents, your inspirations, when we say your hearts, what type of feelings that you already conquered that you can share with others. Maybe it's your smile, maybe it's your sympathy, your empathy, maybe it's a kindness. Maybe it's your intelligence, maybe it's your artistic talent, something that is unique to you, okay? And he continues here, may your intelligence also come to aid your brothers and sisters. So intelligence is also talent to be used for the good, not to destroy, but to construct, to build. All of you can give, whatever may be your social status, you have something you can share, which is clear that sharing talents is not only sharing material possessions, but is sharing really what is inside of us, spirits, that we can give to one another. Whatever God may have given you, you owe part of it to those who lack what's necessary. So sharing our talents is not only a need, but it is our responsibility to share with one another. Okay, if we have, received much more than we need to share with others. Okay, we cannot just hide our talents like we see on the parable. Okay, and now we are going to enter exactly on the subject of our study, which is to get to know ourselves. And the Spirit's book has many questions that can help us, but this one is very famous on this process. So here we have Allan Kardec, and here we have Socrates on this beautiful sculpture, one of the ancient philosophers of Greece. And on this question, we hear, what is the most effective means for improving ourselves in this life and for resisting the draw of evil or temptation? So Kardec asked it when he compiled these questions to the superior spirits, and the answer was clear to us. A sage, one of the sage men of Greece, Socrates here, of antiquity has told you, know thyself, because if we know ourselves, we are going to really identify, what is inside of us that we still need to improve. What are our weaknesses? What are our temptations? And temptations is exactly our imperfections, right? It's things that we do over and over again, not because we are evil, but because we have been doing for so long that is automatic. So if, let's say, Lia, as a spirit, have been aggressive and violent over and over again, it's just difficult for me to become peaceful, but I need to be open and exercise and maybe find ways to put my aggressive side in something that is going to help me become more peaceful. So the process, it's slow, but it is possible to do, okay? And the same Socrates said, know yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. He famously declared that the unexamined life was not worth living. We cannot live a life without examining, without really thinking about it. What can I do better? How can I improve myself? And here we have someone, that is known to us as St. Augustine, who left us a legacy and tell us a recipe how to get to know ourselves. So let's follow St. Augustine. He, during his lifetime, he was able to go an inner transformation, so he can tell us how to do. Let's read together. At the end of each day, I examined my conscience, reviewed what I had done, and asked myself whether or not I had failed to fulfill some duty, and whether or not anyone might have had reason to complain about me. So one time a day, we can all do, examine our conscience. Ask yourself, during this day, did I really fulfill all my duties? Did I hurt people? If we consider ourselves to be followers of Jesus Christ, are we really Christians in our behavior? Are we really doing the best we can do? So this is part of the process of knowing ourselves. And he continues here. Those who every night would recall their actions during the day and would ask themselves what good or evil they have done, praying to God and their guardian angel to enlighten them, would acquire great strength for self-improvement, because, believe me, God will assist them. So, not only a self-reflection and a conscious examination, but ask through prayer to our guardian angels, to our mentors, to the spirits that are surrounding us, to enlighten us to do better on the next day. Every day it's a new opportunity to do better. St. Augustine tells us here. Therefore, ask yourselves about what you have done and towards what aim you acted in a particular circumstance. whether you have done any sin that you would blame in others, and whether you have done any sin that you do not dare profess. So if I have things that I feel ashamed, that I want to hide, is because I'm not doing really a good job. So therefore, self-knowledge is the key to individual improvement. We must study, but we must acquire knowledge. But acquiring knowledge without putting in practice, it does not really help us much. More we know, more responsible we become for our actions. Therefore, we need to put into practice. Is it easy? It's not, but it's why we are here today. Okay? So St. Augustine keeps telling us, and I'm sorry if it's a lot, but I think it's very important to share that with you. I'm just going to put all here, and then we can read through. And I have highlighted how many times he tells us about examine your conscience, examine what you may have done against God, or the divine laws, or every living creature. Examine what you have done to your neighbor. And who is your neighbor? It's people that are around you. It's your family members. It's your co-workers. It's your friends. And lastly, against yourselves, because we do hurt ourselves as well. We do punish ourselves as well, due to guilt feelings. So he keeps here saying, the answers will be either repose for your conscience or an indication of a wrong that you must amend. Ask how you would judge if it had been done by someone else. Seek to know what others think about you, and do not neglect the opinion of your enemies, because they have no interest in disguising the truth. It is not really our enemies, our adversaries, people that do not like us, that really point fingers to us and highlight our imperfections. So we should actually thank them to do that, so we can really sincerely change. Let those who are truly willing to improve themselves examine their own conscience in order to uproot from it their evil tendencies. What is evil tendencies? It's really our imperfections. It's our mistakes. It's not that we are bad. It's just that we are not able to fulfill the divine laws yet. And why, I ask myself, why St. Augustine mentioned over and over again about examining our conscience? And it is on this question, on the Spirit's book. Why? Because it's where God's laws are written. So when we are created and we have the divine mark in us, we also have in our conscience everything that we need to do in our lives. It is there, but we need to reach to our conscience. Some people still have the conscience that is in sleep mode. So we need to wake up and we need to listen. So Kardec wisely asked, since humans carry God's law in their conscience, why does it need to have been revealed to them? Are you familiar with this character? So maybe some people from my generation here, this is Pinocchio, and he was a boy made of wood who wanted to be a real boy, right? And he had a cricket that was very annoying to him, which was representing his conscience. And what he was doing, he was always pushing his friend away because he didn't want to listen. Okay, it's not exactly what we do. And here the spirits are telling us, either we forgot or we disregard. We don't want to listen. But God insistently wants to remind us, because perfection, beauty, happiness is our destination. So we can postpone, but we cannot avoid our progress, okay? It is in our divine DNA. It's imprinted in us. Next question. What's the basis of justice found in the divine natural law? Question at 876. Christ has told you, do unto others whatsoever you would have them do unto you. We all know this golden rule. Why so hard to follow, really? God has placed in the human heart the rule of all true justice through the desire that all have to see their rights respected. We all want our rights to be respected, but who wants to really comply with the duties, with the responsibilities, you know? So if we want justice, we need to be just with others as well. If you are uncertain of what you should do for your neighbor in any given circumstance, ask yourself what you would want your neighbor to do in a similar situation. God could not give you a safer guide than your own conscience. So it's all there, dear friends, but we need to listen, okay? We need to embrace change. Okay, is it a easy process? It's not. And I brought this image. I like images very much because I think it tells us more than words sometimes. And here it's another analogy. I had compared ourselves with the butterfly, now I'm comparing us with an onion. So what we see is only the shell, our current personality, our current life. But in reality, we have many, many layers of different lives, different experiences inside of us. So to get to know ourselves is much more than staying on this superficial part. We need to go deeper. And apologize, I'm going faster. I think I have a lot to cover in a short period of time. So be patient with me here. I will try to go faster. So we learned that self-discovery and personal transformation are journeys that require patience, determination, and a willingness to embrace change. It requires self-observation, self-analysis, introspection, and solitude. We need to dedicate time to really meditate about ourselves, to get to know ourselves. It's not an easy process. Self-knowledge refers to knowledge of one's own mental, emotional states, process, and disposition. So we are complex beings. We are more than a biological body. We need to also know our emotions, our feelings, our minds, our spirits. So it is an ongoing process to really get to know ourselves. It's not something we can do in one lifetime, but we must start now and do our part. You know, we do not need only to do psychotherapy. We can do our own self-observation and self-analysis, as St. Augustine tells us to do. And I'm not going to bring Joanna De Angelis here, you know, and we know she's scary, she's profound. I'm just going to present her to you, you know, because she has a whole book dedicated to self-discovery, you know, and let me put all this. Again, I just brought 2 slides, and she's saying that the process of self-discovery, if we embrace or not, is going to come to our way because it's part of our evolutionary process. Either because we are going to feel we are not in a state of harmony and we are going to look for solutions, or for a need to grow, okay? So I'm not going into detail here, but we need to study Joanna De Angelis as well with other books of the codification. So the codification is the basis of Spiritism, is the foundation. But after we are familiar with the foundation, we must study other books so this can complement our knowledge, because they keep sending us more and more revelations to our growth, okay? So let me put here, there are 16 books comprise what they call the psychological series of Joanna De Angelis. Some are already in the English language, okay? But most of you who speaks Portuguese, you can read the originals, you can study. There are psychologists actually studying the books of Joana de Angelis, the same way there are physicians studying the books of André Luiz. So there is a lot of knowledge for us, okay? And Joana says that in our current state of evolution, it's normal that we have conflicts, which is exactly the difference between what she calls ego and self, what we want to be, okay, and the one that we still are. So in a very simple way, because I'm not a psychologist here, the ego is just the surface of our current personality, is what we see that we are conscious about ourselves, while the self, the spirit, is the layers of the onions, that is very profound, and this is unconscious in our mind. So there is a lot for us to discover on this process of self-discovery. For the people that do not speak Portuguese, the United States Spiritist Federation has a weekly podcast in psychology and spirituality, exactly to help us understand a little bit more about the works of Joana de Angelis. It is possible, according to Joana, that we are going to achieve well-being, and fullness, and discover about ourselves. I don't think I have time to go in details here, but we can, during the question and answers, go deeper on that. I have still a lot of material to share, but I will go very quickly here. So, while we are not perfect butterflies yet, we can combine it, do better, and be more perfect. According to Socrates, the perfect human being is all human beings put together. It is a collective. It is all of us together that make perfection. So the invitation is get to know yourself, see what is already good on you, share with others, and what is not so good, be open to transform. So one day you are going to reach this perfection. And for now, let's remind one another that moral persons are kind, human, and benevolent towards all, without any kind of prejudice, because in essence, we are brothers and sisters, because we are children of the same God. How to reach this perfection? And I have to say, thank you here, Cinthia, who actually gave me the whole guide to compile this presentation. And you made me think a lot about this passage from Jesus saying, be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. Because we learn that absolute perfection, what did I do? I got excited. Okay, thank you. You see, I need someone here smarter, more handsome, to help me. I think I could stay here an hour or two with you, but we have a lot to cover. Okay, so let me go back there. We learn that the absolute perfection only our Creator can have. Only God possesses infinite perfection in all things. But as humans, we can reach a relative perfection, okay? But why Jesus compared the perfection with God and not, with himself? He was humble. He never said, I am God. He said, I'm a teacher, I'm here to share lessons with you, But he gave us God as a model, so he limited himself to presenting to us a model. How long I have? Okay, so I guess I should stop here, or okay, I will just then quickly to reach this perfection. There is a degradation. There is a gradation of love. Okay, so we start by tolerating one another, and as we evolve, we are going to reach this perfection, which is to love even our enemies. Okay? I will not be able to talk about pride and selfishness. I think this is something that Cinthia is going to cover, because definitely this can really be a big block for moral transformation. And the last one that I want to give to you is this message, an invitation from our Master Jesus, and from the high spirits to really be open to fraternity, to charity, to love one another without any type of prejudices. And this journey of self-transformation, it's something that we all need to go through in order to become better souls. I would like to thank you very much for your time, for your attention, and apologies if I have too much to share or if I talk too much. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Lia, for such an informative presentation. Next, I'd like to call Mr. Appling back to the podium to talk about the 2023 SSMD Charitable Drive.
Thank you, Linda. I'd like to talk something about the symposium. The symposium sponsors and the organizational committee have invited you to participate in this Spiritist Society of Maryland's online donation drive of in-kind items to benefit the Welcome Baby program of the Interfaith Works Clothing Center. This program provides expectant mothers with a gift bag containing the items needed for a baby layette. Interfaith Works is a local nonprofit charitable organization helping thousands of people in Montgomery County, Maryland. They provide emergency shelter, supportive housing, essential needs, and employment programs. Charity is love, love in action. May it be in thought, in words, and in acts, which are manifested in unselfish love of one's neighbor. We want to thank all of you for your kindness and generosity on behalf of this organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Appling. I would next like to introduce Mr. Leonardo Vieira to talk about the powers of spirit, thought, and will. Mr. Vieira is one of the founding members of the Spiritist Society of Baltimore. He's conducted and assisted with study groups, mediumship meetings, and public talks. Mr. Vieira holds a bachelor's in business administration and a master's in management, specializing in homeland security. Professionally, he works in a major financial institution as a banker. Please join us in welcoming Mr. Vieira.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Everybody's so quiet. Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Let me just go ahead and Thank you, Lia, for the great presentation and the warming welcome as well. It's good to see some, it's going to get loud. Good to see some friends that I haven't seen for a while being here with you. And thank you for the opportunity to be heard as well. We were tasked to talk about the powers of the spirit, thought, and will. And some of the elements that we will be covering here today, Lee already touched upon, and we would like to kind of brush it off again, just go over so we have a better understanding. And hopefully, towards the end of this talk, towards the end of this encounter here today, we have some tools with us that we can apply on our lives. Nothing's going to change if we don't put our effort, as we saw that with Lia, that the change takes a lot of effort and it takes a lot of time, right? But pat yourselves on the back. We are here today, and that is already a great win-win for all of us because it shows that we have done good so far, right? We could be doing other things, and here we are today. But I would like to ask you a question. Why we're here? Why we're here today? Anybody want to take a shot? To learn, okay. To improve, okay. I'm going to ask you. Okay, now we're getting deeper. All right. So to learn or to remind ourselves that this is not the only life we have, right? And it could be, we could go around the room and we'll come up with several answers, right? But this is the idea of this moment that we're going to be sharing here, for us to get to the nitty-gritty of our thoughts and ask ourselves why we're here. Why am I doing this? Why am I thinking of this or that? And we're going to get back to this, right? But I also wanted to bring some purpose with this idea, right? We came here, we have a purpose. We want to learn more. We want to be reminded ourselves. We want to remind ourselves of certain things that sometimes, even though we know it, but it's good to be in family, right? It's good to be together where we emphasize these things between ourselves. Along with that is that it took a group of people, right, to come together and say, you know what, we have another symposium that we have to put together. Let's pick a date. Let's pick a topic, right? And let's get together for the event, right? So there was a thought and there was a displacement of energy. The same thing, it happened to us today, right? We have to go, we have to drive. So there was a thought and there is energy being displaced, the thought and the will, right? So it's not like we just dropped over here. Or did that happen? Well, sometimes we do find ourselves in that position, right? We're thinking and it's like, what happened? Why am I thinking of this? Why am I here? I'm quite sure that many of us have been in that position. And it reminds me of the quote of this amazing man, René Descartes, when he said, cogito ergo sum. In other words, in English, let's translate, I think, therefore I am. It would be nice for us to be at home and say, I think, and then just teletransport ourselves to here, right? But no, we're in the physical body. We have to drive. We have to get ourselves together. We have to go to the places. We have to really make this machine, the physical body, move, right? But one more time, I dare you to say, no, I've never been in that position, because we all have been. Sometimes thinking that we are a one thought. We are that moment, right? And usually that happens when we're going through moments of despair. And it is so true that sometimes we find ourselves in that thinking moment, and we are that despair. We are that difficult that we face, right? And we don't stop to say or to think, why am I thinking of this? What led us to that thought? What led us to that will as well? Right? We'll see a little bit more. In order for us to get to know a little bit more about ourselves, for us to understand what this transformative power is, the thought and the will, let's use of some of the elements that we learned from Spiritism and kind of get everything together again. And hopefully, again, we'll have the tools that we need. Forgot to check my time. So who are we? Lia already kind of mentioned a little bit, but I want to just go back with you and kind of emphasize a little bit on what we learned from Spiritism. Why Spiritism? Because Spiritism, it is a science that deals with the nature, origin, and destiny of spirits and their relation with the corporeal world. And we are obviously in a Spiritist event. That's why we will, for sure, use of elements that Spiritism brings to us. Otherwise, we could be learning about different things. But here we are. And I think that it's important to bring this element. It kind of emphasizes, again, the validity of what Spiritism brings to us in terms of the self. Not only me, Leo, this reincarnation, but what happened before, what's happening now, and hopefully what's going to happen in the future as well. So Allan Kardec in the Spirits book asks, what is a spirit? And the answer of the Spirit said is the intelligent principle of the universe. Very simplistic, but with a lot of information behind, right? But we're not going to get stuck on the question and the answer. We're just going to kind of go over for the sake of time and for us to elaborate within ourselves the right answers. But there's another question that I find that is really interesting as well when he says, when Kardec asks, how may we define spirits? It changes a little bit, and it's more elaborate. We can say that spirits are the intelligent beings of creation. They populate the universe beyond the material worlds. As we can see here, if you don't feel good about yourself with this answer, I don't know what will get you, but we are the intelligent beings of the universe, and we populate everything. It differs us from this podium, from this computer. We create these things. We are the intelligent beings, right? And these are the moments that we read these things, it's like, okay, very subjective. Well, it can be if our thoughts are there, right? In that subjective world. Give a continuation. In the Medium's book, we will see that the spirit is the thinking being that survives, The spirit is the thinking being that survives death. The body is no more than an accessory for the spirit, an envelope, a garment that it abandons after having worn it. Besides this material envelope, the spirit possesses another semi-material envelope, which is connected to the first. At death, the spirit abandons the body, but not the second covering, which we'll call the perispirit. And once more, Lia also mentioned this earlier today, and we would like to touch back on, because it will kind of give us a differentiation from one another, right? So what are we? We're spirit, we have our perispirit, and we have our physical body, right? Why is this important for us in this idea of thought and will? Because we often think that the thought is in the physical body. It's created by the physical body. Well, non-living beings then would be able to think, right? So it is within me. It's part of me, right? And Descartes also touches on this a long time ago. Well, I'm thinking. We are thinking beings, right? Again, another power that is very, very not used. Well, we don't use it so well. We lose the physical body, but we continue on, right? And we maintain our perispirit. That changes over time as well. And there we'll find all the other thoughts that we have already thought, all the other actions that we already made, which was imprinted in the perispirit, and in the physical, in the future life, perhaps will be imprinted in the physical body as well. So, not trying to get into genetics, because I'm not a doctor. If we look at our parents and say, I got this from you, I got this from my mother or from my father, guess what? There's some help there, but quite often we really have to look within ourselves. And when we look in the mirror, we can say we are a product of our own selves, right? But more to come on that. We are eternal. This, if there's anything that we want to pay attention to, is this part over here. And we'll get to it more. But we want to say that we are eternal, not only from this life on. We had a past. We certainly have a present. We're here nowadays, right now. And we'll have a future as well. So whatever is happening to me right now is a consequence, perhaps, of our past, right? Whatever I will be in the future is also a collective consequence of what I'm doing now and my past. So it changes our perspective on where we are, what I'm thinking, and the control that I have as well over thought and will, at least for me, hopefully to you as well. Because now we're thinking that we're eternal. Now we know for sure, or at least we're being reminded that there's a tomorrow. Maybe not in the physical body. We also have to take that in consideration. Joanna D'Angelo reminds us to think about death, not in a morbid way, but to think about death, to go back to our true essence. And it's okay, right? We are connected physically and spiritually. If we think we're about what? I don't know, maybe 30, 50 of us here today, more than that. And that's it? No. There is way more, right? And there will be so many more tomorrow. Think about what we learn here today, what we will do when we come in contact with our brothers and sisters or family members tomorrow. We will be multiplying what we have reminded ourselves or we have learned here today. So we are in this eternal connection. But there is more to this connection that we would like to mention as well. Once more, what does this whole thing have to do with thought and will? We know a little bit of ourselves now, right? We can at least know the reference. We know at least the reference that we can go back to and say, okay, this is where I need to look for. I need to understand a little bit more of this. Let's talk about thought then. What is thought? Same way we question, what was I thinking of? What am I thinking about, right? We can also ask, what is thought? What is thought for you? Yeah, I'm giving time for you to think. You don't have to answer. Think about what is thought. And I guarantee you're going to get to a point that you're like, wow, I can think. I can process things, right? I can question. I can answer. One of the things for many of us here is that we have is the ability to speak a couple languages, right? And it's a beautiful thing. Often people come to me with asking me about my broken English, say, how many languages you speak? I'm like, I start thinking, I'm like, well, I'm still trying to learn English, born and raised in Brazil, but it is a beautiful thing because it's not only the language, but it's also the culture that we learn, right? It's the insights that you get from one another, right? What you learn with this country as well. So I'm kind of elaborating a little bit more on the thought because we need to see the value of it. Right? We look at a little bit on a dog, for example, or an animal, right? It's fragmented. They look at us, they signal something, and we help them, right? Or they help us sometimes, but it's fragmented. But us, it's continuous. Even if I say to you right now, stop thinking, you're going to be thinking about stop thinking. And they're on and on and on and on, right? So in Spiritism, we will learn that on question 89, actually is the second part of the question, that thought is one of soul's attributes. So you can't run from it. It's our attribute. It's something that we have. And it took millions of years for us to be here in this position. So let's not take for granted. It is through thought that they enjoy unlimited freedom. For thought knows no obstacles. Its manifestation may be hindered, but not erased. We can be in the worst state ever, incarcerated in whatever situation we may be. Because when I say incarceration, it's not just the incarceration of the prisons and whatnot. Sometimes we incarcerate ourselves in one thought. And this is beautiful because we can snap out of it. We can change it if we allow ourselves to do so. So the freedom, the only true freedom that we have is through thought. Hopefully you're not frittering around right now. You're paying attention to this. Because sometimes we do that as well, right? We wander around, right? But that's the idea. In the Spirit Review also, we learn, Kardec will remind us that thought is the characteristic attribute of the spiritual being. It is what distinguishes spirits from matter. Without thought, the spirit would not be spirit. We're not there yet. We just mentioned the animals. They have this fragmented thought, right? They don't think continuously. It stops. So much so that anything calls their attention, whatever that is, right? What about will? It's a little bit more difficult, isn't it? Because we think, but what is will? What is will for you? Well, as Spiritists, we always talk about free will, right? On how we connect with one another, how we act upon one another and even ourselves. But what is will? Let's try to bring some elements here and help ourselves. Once more, in the Spirit Review of 1864, Kardec will say that will is not a special attribute, as thought is, of the spirit. It is thought reached at a certain degree of energy. It is thought transformed into a driving force. It is through will that the spirit imbues the limbs and the body with movements in a certain direction. But if it has the force to act on material organs, how much greater must this force be on the fluidic elements that surrounds us? Once more, we take it for granted. I can do whatever with my body. We can create beautiful things, but there are certain moments of our lives that we are really in a position to put into practice what we're learning here, or to give that driving force to thought, and we stop, and we retract, and we cry, and we blame someone else, right? Because we think that others need to do for us. I bring the picture of a sailboat like this, and I was thinking about the idea of will. Didn't bring butterflies, sorry, ladies. But how strong was the will of the men, and many of us today, when they went out to the sea, not knowing where they're going? Think about it. They had a thought. Look, I need to get to a point that my coordinates tells me that I'll get there one day. But they did not know what they're going to have or to see. There was no weather channel for sure, right? And they had to deal with the elements, how much food they had. They packed enough for whatever. But the will, the desire to find something drove them towards the sea, right? Emmanuel, in this amazing book, and this is one of the books that we also would like to invite everyone to read, Thought and Life, he will tell us that the will he defines our conscience in departments, as if we're in an office, right? And he talks about a couple of them, not all of them. He says that there is one department, the department of desire, where purposes and aspirations are at work, simulating our activity. Department of Intelligence, which expends evolutionary and cultural assets. Department of Imagination, slowly joining together the riches of ideals and sensitivity. And the Department of Memory, where archives our experiences are kept, and yet other departments that define the many functions of those souls. So there are many. However, there is the cabinet, and he calls now the cabinet of the will, the enlightened and the vigilant manager that supervises all sectors of our mental activities, without which nothing happens. And we know that, right? It is the helm for all kinds of driving forces incorporated in our knowledge. It is the decisive factor. So, we have thought, we have our will, but there's one element that I also would like to bring to each one of you that will kind of binds us together, will kind of bring us together. And I'm not saying in a very simplistic way, but on how we move things around, right? I know the room is beautiful. We all gather, we put things together, but there's more than that we have put together. When we were hopefully preparing to come here today, we start thinking, I need to be my best behavior. I need to dress well, right? The ladies, I'm pretty sure, were choosing the different shoes or whatever, right? The makeups and all, right? Everybody's, it is true. It's okay. It's beauty, right? That we're trying to prepare ourselves. So we're moving elements, and hopefully the elements of the mind as well. So how does this happen, right? How do we connect with one another at a deeper level? Not only the physical, it's through fluids. And this is something else that we would like to bring in this idea, in this better understanding of thought and will, that we are immersed in the universal cosmic fluid. I like to bring the example of us, all of us, in a swimming pool right now, right? And we are still. If one of us makes any sudden movement, guess what? We'll feel it as well. Let's hold that thought. In the Genesis, we will learn that the universal cosmic fluid is the primitive elementary matter whose modifications and transformations comprise the innumerable variety of bodies found in nature. The spirits act upon the spiritual fluids, but they do not manipulate them like humans manipulate gases. Instead, they use the help of thought and will. The rest is important here, but I want to stop and say we are manipulating the physical elements, but through our thought and will as well, we are manipulating the fluids. So when we go to someone else, a friend's house, and they offer us Brazilians with, and or the British, like Brazilians would like the coffee, the British they like the tea, whatever water. But it's made with such an effort that it tastes like it was the first coffee you ever tasted in your life, or that tea, or the water. It could be tap water, but it was given with such a heart that we're like, this is interesting. Or anything else that perhaps we may receive in the physical body. It's the same element, but there is a different taste. Because we put our thought, there was a thought of offering something to a loved one, and there was a drive, the will to offer, but offer in a different way. Offer it with love, right? And we taste it, we feel it. We are accommodated in as much as we are accommodated by our mother's arm, right? Or a hug of a friend, right? So sometimes these transformations are the result of intent. Frequently, however, they are the product of an unconscious thought. It is enough for a spirit to think about something in order for it to be produced. Just as it is enough for the spirit to, intone a melody in order to resound in the atmosphere. So we are, with our thoughts, we're singing. We're producing waves, much like we mentioned as well in the pool. In the Spirit Review once more, thought acts on ambient fluids as sound acts on air. These fluids brings us thought as air brings us sound. It can therefore be said with complete truth that there are waves and rays of thoughts in these fluids that intersect without getting confused, just as there are waves and sound rays in the air. We were driving here, Daniel, Kirsten, Isabella, and I, and at one point of our conversation, I said something abruptly, and Kirsten in the back said, Leo, I was thinking about the same thing, right? Is it by chance? Yes, we're in the same conversation, right? It's not by chance. That sometimes we're thinking about someone, and then suddenly the phone rings. That was not my case when my phone rang, folks. But it just happened. Somebody called me. But in any case, the idea is for us to pay attention to these moments. Pay attention to the connections. Why is that so? If I'm feeling afflicted, and there is no apparent reason for me to be afflicted at that moment, quite sure somebody is afflicted on the other side of the phone, wherever the other side of the phone may be, right? and we have to pay attention. Sometimes, quite often, we face the idea of going to the Spiritist Center and we don't feel well. Why is that so? Perhaps there is a brother or sister connected with me or that individual that we feel afflicted. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, what we would do with this is of importance, right? Because Emmanuel tells us in the same book that only the will is sufficiently strong to sustain the harmony of the spirit. Of course, and this is important, it cannot stop mental reflections wherever these are produced by contacts with others, because attunement is an unbreakable law. But it can impose disciplinary control over the elements it governs, so as to maintain them cohesive in the service of goodness. In other words, somebody comes afflicted to us, we have the right, and I would say even more, we have the duty to stay still. We will help the individual, but we don't want to get into that frequency. We will offer an arm, but not let think the arm and the whole body. The bombardments of life will come. Just turn on the TV. We'll get into despair, right? But we have this right. It's my thought. It's my will. It's not an egotistic thing to think, but an analysis that we can make every single time when something is proposed to us. And here comes the closing part of it, right? We have found ourselves that way, not knowing what to do. Whatever you want to think what that picture, if you want to take a peek as well, of that picture may be, we have found ourselves in that position several times. And guess what? Sorry to say, but we'll find ourselves in there again. But there is a way out. The moments that we are so connected with the negative thought that we look at and say, what is this? Why am I thinking of this? Couple points here for us to close out. And I'll start with the card again. In another one of his meditations, he said the following: what of thinking? I find here that thought is an attribute that belongs to me. It alone cannot be separated from me. I am. I exist. That is certain. But how often? Just when I think, for it might possibly be the case if I cease entirely to think, that I should likewise cease altogether to exist. Not that we were wishing one another the idea of not existing anymore, but if we don't exercise this power of thought and will, we may pronounce ourselves dead temporarily, because something is going to come on us and say, wait a minute, wake up, right? And this is a thinker, this is a philosopher. On question 909, we will see that how could humans always overcome their evil tendencies through their own efforts? Well, yes. And sometimes with very little effort. What we lack is the willpower. How few of us make such an effort, however. Right? Joanna de Angelis, to finalize in this part here, says God gave us willpower. I never forget this message. It's chapter 50 of this amazing book, Happy Life. God gave us willpower. If it seemed weak to you, guess what? That is because we are not exercising it. We are not exercising it. And she'll go on to say, each and every day, each and every moral and organic function needs practice to be able to respond rapidly to mental commands. Do not give up if at first you do not succeed. And this is so reassuring because she's saying, do not give up if you do not succeed, which it means that we're not going to get it first. It's going to take effort. It's going to take time, right, Lia? It's not going to happen overnight. I guarantee you that tomorrow I'll be facing challenges, especially when we give a talk about something. A bunch of things happens, right, to test us. to really put us connected to our higher selves and say, I need to try this again. Change, like Daniel likes to say, change the team. If you're not winning, just change the team. And something will happen. So, for us to close, why am I here? I want to ask you guys to be curious about this. If you get to that point that stress took over, you don't have no more energy whatsoever, you ask yourself, why am I thinking about this? You have that power. You have that capability. Because sometimes when we say power, it's like superpower, and it is. But let's diminish a little bit and talk to ourselves. Be kind to ourselves. Why am I thinking about A, B, or C? I have no ever reason to be feeling this way. We know we have a past. We have this beautiful present right now. I want a better future. So I will choose what I will be thinking. Joanna de Angelis again reminds us that when a thought comes and it's not of a good nature, we replace it. Although simplistic, but very effective, right? Why am I not able to accomplish this or that? Try again. We have light today because somebody was persistent with the light bulb. We have computers today. We have everything that is in front of us. And we are here today because somebody was persistent. The last thought that I would leave with you in terms of this idea of curiosity. What if our parents were not exercising their thought and their will? We can stay in the physical body or on the physical idea of the question. But let's think about us spirits receiving this opportunity to reincarnate again, given the opportunity to think, to be active, right? To apply ourselves over matter, but also the fluids in whichever way we want, hopefully for the positive. And that's what I would like to leave with you in the idea of thought and will. We have the tools, we have the elements, it only depends on us. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Leo. I gotta put this down. I'm significantly shorter. Thank you so much, Leo, for such a great presentation in perfect English, might I add. We were going to take a brief pause for a poetic moment because poetry reading is a form of art. It needs a speaker and a listener, a performer and an audience, and the voice is the mechanism by which a poet's voice comes alive. So I'd like to invite Miss Kirsten DeMelo from the Spiritist Society of Baltimore to the podium for a very special artistic moment.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Much better.
Yeah. I realize I am what stands in the way between you and your coffee break, so I promise I will be brief. Sorry, Cinthia. How many of us know of this great poet, Brazilian poetess, Auta de Souza? Some yes, some no. Well, today we're going to be bringing a poem by her. And for those of you who are not aware who Auta de Souza was, she was a famous Brazilian mystic poet. And although in her recent incarnation, she was not known to have been spiritist, but deeply spiritual in her writing and deeply connected to her sense of what some might call the spirit or the essence. Hence why in Brazil, they considered her this great mystical poetess. She wrote romantic poems, some of symbolic influence. She also only ever published one book in her lifetime, but one book was enough for her to make such an impact within the Brazilian culture and literary world. She was deemed, as I shared, the greatest mystical poet in Brazil. And the poem we're going to be sharing today, the poem Fraternal Message, was published in the book Parnaso de Além Túmulo, or Parnassus from Beyond the Grave, in which we can find more than 200 poems dictated by the spirits of 56 Brazilian and Portuguese poets. And this book was psychographed by Francisco Cândido Xavier. And it's very interesting if you were to read on the biography or I want to say the Spiritist Federation, the United States Spiritist Federation website, I want to say, I believe it was there, the biography. And it's interesting what Chico says about her, that there were so few spirits that came and only gave one message through Chico, and Auta de Souza and some others were one of those. But Chico said, was her being close to him was so impactful that he at times could not tell if the tears that she cried while sharing her poem with him were hers or his, because he was so touched. So allow us to read her poem, translated, Fraternal Message. My friend, your simplest prayers, they are heard in the infinite space. But I know that sometimes you cry, dismayed by the silence of the force which you entreat. Return to your abandoned inner temple, the highest of all chapels, and the most lucid and beautiful answers will cause you joy and amazement. Listen to your heart in each prayer. God answers you within you and enlightens with the eternal force of consolation. You will understand the pain that dominates you under the pure and pilgrim language of the voice of God in light of redemption. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten. We're going to take a brief coffee break now. You'll see refreshments over there against that wall, and we will return to our program at 4 p.m. sharp. Thank you. Enjoy.
Elas tinham que cantar uma música. Alô? Test, testing 1, 2, 3. Thanks, good.
It's now 4 o'clock. If everyone could please take their seats so that we can start the second part of our program. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce our final speaker, Dr. Cinthia Fabretti, with a presentation titled Moral Transformation. Dr. Fabretti is president of the Germantown Spiritist Society, and she previously coordinated the Spiritism for Everyone Live web meetings, which was an educational program of the United States Spiritist Federation. She continues to contribute to the U.S. Spiritist movement as a speaker. Dr. Fabretti holds a doctorate of veterinary medicine and has practiced in the field for many years. Welcome, Dr. Fabretti.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're having, an enjoyable time. It is in our nature, the desire for constant improvement in all areas of human life. Moral transformation is one of those areas, a very important one. Moral transformation relates to moral values and virtues. Moral values are the guidelines that assist us in deciding between right and wrong. And virtue is the behavior, our conduct, our actions, showing high moral values. It is a delicate topic. But let me start by stating that I'm not here to tell you what to do, to preach morality, or to establish canons of behavior. The purpose of this presentation is to bring awareness about the need for moral presentation and to share knowledge and insight about this journey. Oh, on is better if it's on, isn't it? The path to moral excellence is not an easy one, for it requires constant self-reflection, self-discipline, and the unwavering determination to choose righteousness over convenience, over expediency. Not an easy path, but difficult doesn't mean impossible. It simply means that we must work harder. Before we go further into the topic, we need to briefly talk about moral relativism. Moral relativism is the idea that there is no universal or absolute set of morals. What is wrong under one circumstance may be right under another. We know that humanity's moral values have been fluid through time, place, and culture. And to illustrate that, I will give you an example. Child labor during the Industrial Revolution. It may be shocking to learn that before 1900s in the United States, there were virtually no laws protecting children from the cruelties of child labor. At the same time in Britain, children start working on average at 10 years old. It varied. In industrial areas, it could be even less than that. Child labor is morally and ethically unacceptable. In 1989, the Convention on the Rights of the Children were signed. For the first time, children were seen as humans with rights rather than economic assets. Wrapping up, just because certain thoughts and behaviors were accepted by some at one point, at some time, as right, doesn't make it right. In the Spirit's book, question 621, Kardec asked the spirits, where is God's law written? We saw this one, I think, both of them. Yes, in the butterfly. So they asked, where is God's law written? In the conscience, they respond. That inner feeling, that inner voice, acting as a guide of one's behavior. There is a phrase that I love that is, conscience, help us hear the voice of God in us. This beautiful quote was written by Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, a French priest. I don't know if you can see his name there. There is another one similar, written by C.S. Lewis. You do not have a soul. You are a soul. You have a body. What moral values ought we to use as guidelines to work on our moral transformation? As I mentioned before, moral values are the guidelines that assist us in deciding between right and wrong. Where do we get our moral values? Family, school, religion, peers? I think we may say with some degree of confidence that family and religion are the two major sources for moral values. We are not going to examine what constitutes a family because of the many definitions of family and the changing realities of the current times. But no matter what family looks like or means to you, family has a role, a very important role. The family is the first teacher that transmits the appropriate behavior patterns, values, attitudes, and norms of the society to the child. And what about religion? The role of religion on moral values. Depending on the source, there are over 4,000 to 10,000 religions, beliefs, and groups existing around the world. Religion and morality are not the same. Though religion may depend on morality and even develop alongside morality, morality does not necessarily depend upon religion. What do I mean by that? One doesn't need to have a religion to be a moral person. Atheists and believers both have moral compasses. Although family and religion teach us moral values, we are only humans. Some bias cannot be avoided. Who among us have no faults, no shortcomings, have never erred? So ideally, we need a guideline so that we all can agree upon. I love Kardec's approach to how to reach a consensus about an idea or a concept. First step or test is to subject that concept to the severe examination of reason, common sense, and logic. The second step is to find a universal concordance when the same idea is widely accepted in many different places. There is a rule that passed those tests that transcends many barriers. It is called the Golden Rule. This rule is not subject to religious beliefs, race, ethnicity, nationality, gender, sexual orientation, social class, culture, politics, age, anything else you can think of. As a matter of fact, in nearly every religious belief, there is a variation of the Golden Rule. Even non-religious people believe in its humanistic principles. Treat others as you would like to be treated. The Golden Rule is a good guide for our moral values and behavior. We can look for other sources of inspiration to assist us in determining which behaviors we want to acquire or improve. One of these sources is the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus offers us guidelines to moral behavior. Another one is in the book The Gospel According to Spiritism, chapter 17, item 3, called Moral Persons. Kardec comments on this topic is a true gem. We talked about guidelines. Now let's talk about behavior. Behavior is the way in which one acts and conducts oneself, especially concerning others. In scientific research, human behavior is a complex interplay of three components: actions, thought, and emotions. There are many types of behavior: social behavior, learning behavior, moral behavior. No matter which type, the principles behind them are the same. Consider this: all behaviors occur for a reason, even if we are not aware of the reason. Behaviors stop occurring when they are ineffective, when they are not producing any significant or desired effect. We don't get what we want, we stop the behavior. Almost all human behavior is learned. The almost here is referring to reflex responses, which is the only innate behavior in humans. Behaviors continue to occur because they are effective. They are successful in producing a desired or intended result. We get what we want, we continue with the same behavior. No behaviors occur out of the blue. For every effect, there is a cause, a reason. This chart shows the level of consciousness regarding behaviors. The first level, the lower one, the green, of consciousness is unawareness. We are unaware that we are engaged in an undesirable, unhealthy behavior. Then, post-behavior awareness. We become conscious of it, but only after the fact, after we did something. I believe we all can relate to that. The next level, present awareness. We become conscious that we are engaging in the undesirable, unhealthy behavior while we are doing it. Following, choice. we are conscious that we are about to engage in undesirable, unhealthy behavior. And in that moment, we have a choice to do something different. And lastly, conscious behavior. It is basically any behavior that is completed with intent, derived for our own volition. On the conscious level of behavior called choice, we are about to engage, that we are about to engage in the undesirable, unhealthy behavior. And in that moment, in that space, we have a choice to do something different. Viktor Frankl has a great quote. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. 2 tips to make the space work for you. First, avoid making choices when you are feeling anger, fear, sadness, even hunger. Those emotions are not good advisors. The American Psychological Association says that it's hard to make smart choices when we are in the grips of a powerful negative emotion. The second tip is to find a calm space within us before making the decisions. Focus on breathing or counting to 10 or 100, whatever works for you. Within that space, you will have the opportunity to change your behavior. All human behavior is learned. The question is, do we want to change our ways? Moral transformation is a journey, a long and often difficult process of personal change and development. So where to start? First, there is an intent, then a behavior, then a habit, then a practice, then a second nature, then it's simply who you are. Set intentions, not goals. While both goals and intentions steer our path, they do so in fundamentally different ways. Goals are linked or focus on outcomes, achievements, and results. Intentions, on the other hand, illuminate our journey. They are present moment anchors that are deeply rooted in our personal values. Emotions motivate and help guide our decisions. They influence judgments and choices. You can see various examples there. The world around us, other people, and our own thoughts trigger emotional reactions all the time. We already said that strong feelings lead us to make unwise decisions. So become aware of your emotions, understand them, seek their reason, reflect on your behaviors. We were reminded earlier today of the importance of knowing oneself, recognizing and acknowledging those personal areas in need of moral improvement. So self-awareness is a good place to start. The first step. Then perhaps the next step is the most consequential one. It is to know what we want. Do I really want to change? The desire to change requires a conviction that the change we seek is necessary, that we truly want to do the work. We also learn that we all possess an important set of tools, the powers of spirit, thought and will. Thought become our words. Words become our actions. Actions become our habits, so forth and so on. So what we often lack is the will, the determination to start and continue the path. Moral transformation is a gradual process with small improvements as well as setbacks. True transformation is a journey, a long and often challenging process of personal change and development. When should we start this journey? The best time to start was yesterday. The next best time is now. Lao Tzu also said that do the difficult things while they are easy, and do the great things while they are small. How long does it take to form new habits? A habit is a behavior you want to incorporate into your life for the long term. We just need to set our expectations correctly. It was believed that it took 21 days to form a new habit. I always thought so. The 21-day rule originates from a surgeon called Maxwell Maltz. He wrote a book referencing his patients needing a minimum of 21 days to adjust to their new bodies. More relevant research now is available. An article from the University College of London on Science of Habits reads, research has shown that it takes 66 days, 66 days up to 10 weeks on average to form a new habit. This can vary from person to person, and also it depends on the habit, on the behavior we want to change. However long it takes, practicing that behavior does get easier with time. Research also suggests that if we do keep up, the behavior until a habit is formed, it will eventually become a second nature. And another information is that missing the opportunity to practice a behavior does not significantly impact the habit formation process. Meaning, I'm trying to change a behavior and one day I miss it or I forget it, whatever. I just, slip up. Don't be discouraged. Just try to get back on track, as soon as you can. So if the new behavior is important to you, be patient and keep working on it. Keep practicing it. Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm pressing the wrong button, of course. The dictionary is the only place success comes before work. Aristotle golden mean. Virtue is behavior showing high moral standards. On the other hand, vice is a negative habit or behavior that is immoral, unhealthy, and socially unacceptable. Golden mean in philosophy, it's an approach to ethics that emphasizes finding the appropriate middle ground between two extremes. Moral behavior is the mean, the middle ground between two extremes. One end is the excess, the other end the deficiency. Let's take courage as an example. To be courageous, it's the perfect balance between two negative extremes, recklessness and cowardice. Aristotle listed moderation as one of the moral virtues. Moderation plays a vital role in all forms of moral excellence. So balance and harmony are more likely when moderation is sought rather than extremes. Moral transformation is a journey. We are repeating, striving to be better, a better and improved version of ourselves. It is an ongoing process. Why not to give this project the attention it deserves? Moral transformation has an impact on whom we are in just about every aspect of our lives. It's a true investment for our immortal spirit. Most of us want to change the world. But the world we need to change first is the one inside of us. If you want to change the world, who do you begin with? Yourself or others? This transformative experience, metamorphic experience, is personal, individual, and non-transferable. Moral transformation is part of this evolutionary experience. At first glance, the statement sounds very harsh. Let's try to understand a little bit about it. This transformative experience is personal, affecting all or belonging to us rather than anyone else. It affects us. It has an emotional impact on us. It is individual. Every experience is different. It is unique, tailored for each one of us, and non-transferable. Nobody can make this journey on your behalf. This calls to mind the idea of my cross to carry, my experience to have. Be proactive instead of reactive. Take the wheel. Having a proactive attitude enables us to make decisions in a mindful, well-informed way and grow from those experiences rather than scrambling and put out unexpected fires. Paraphrasing William Henley, the author of the poem Invictus, be the master of your fate, the captain of your soul. Joanna de Angelis, on the book Happy Life, that both of the three of us are referencing, advises, do not abandon your aspirations of moral transformation because of the first difficulties you encounter. when one decides to modify their moral behavior for the better, it seems like we face a general conspiracy against our desire for improvement. Everything changes, and it is out of control. The least little things become complicated. The situation, she says, may lead us to retreat and give up. Don't give up. You only fail if you quit. Okay. I like tales or stories that teach a moral or spiritual lesson. This is a favorite. You have probably heard of it before. There are many variations of it out there. I believe it goes well with the topic of this presentation. So please allow me to read to you. And I don't know why, if I choke, it's because I get very emotional every time I read it. An old man told his grandson, "My son, there is a battle between two wolves inside us all. One is evil. It is anger, envy, doubt, regret, guilt, greed, resentment, inferiority, lies, and ego. The other is good. It is joy, peace, hope, love, humility, kindness, compassion, forgiveness, and truth." The boy thought about it and asked, "Grandfather, which wolf wins?" The old man simply replied, "The one you feed." Thank you so much for listening to my presentation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fabretti, for such a powerful presentation. I felt like I was back in grad school. It was lovely. So really quickly before I introduce the last portion of our event, which will be the panelists discussion, I just wanted to let everyone know that the library closes at 6 sharp, which means we will not have access to the corridor outside of these walls or the restroom. So if you'd like to use the restroom before we end the evening, please make sure to do so before 6 p.m. Next, I will be introducing the moderator of our panelist discussion, Dr. Sonia Doi. Dr. Doi is president of 3 separate organizations, the Allan Kardec Spiritist Society of Maryland, the U.S. Spiritist Medical Association, and also the International Spiritist Medical Association. Dr. Doi graduated in medicine from the University of São Paulo, specializing in endocrinology. Please join us in welcoming Dr. Doi.
Hello, good afternoon. Hey, good. And good afternoon to those who are following with us online. Continuing with our program, I am really delighted to open this panel discussion on the free talks presented today. So let's invite the speakers to occupy the seats. Lia Gouveia, Leonardo Vieira, please, and Cinthia Fabretti. I'm sorry, may I continue to call you by the first name? Okay, so I'm Sonia, okay? So first and foremost, I want to congratulate the speakers for the enlightening presentation. Wonderful, really outstanding presentation. For this session, we encourage you to raise questions. We are aware that the speakers had very limited time for their presentations, and there is still room to expand on these topics. So don't be shy. Your questions are always valuable so that they can help in clarifying relevant points that the speakers did not have enough time to elaborate further. To ask questions, I would ask you to please raise your hands. And also, when you are asking questions, please state your name and the name of the speaker you want to address the question to. So when you raise your hands to ask questions, some of our volunteers will hand a microphone to you. Well, we heard these wonderful talks today. Lia told us about the self-discovery. She encouraged us to go deep inside and look inside of ourselves. And we are not going so deep to just find the bad things that we hide there. We are also reminded to look at the gifts that we have, but the gifts that we can use in order to help others. So that's a good incentive that, we can go deep. Leo told us about the powers of the spirit, the thought and the will. The thought can never stop. We're always thinking. As he told us, we cannot stop thinking, even when we discarnate. That's how the spirits talk to each other, right? By thinking, thoughts. But the will need some work. We need effort. Will needs our action. So we need to do some work on that if we want to make our thoughts to become a reality. And Cinthia just told us about the moral transformation, and she told us that it's a process. It's a journey. So that means we cannot just do one day and done with it, right? We always have to, it's something that we have to revisit for as long as we're here. So we have a lot to learn, and because I am the moderator, I have the privilege to ask the first questions. I'm just kidding. Anyone ready for a question? I prefer that. So if you already have a question, I put mine last.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Alba Morales from the Spiritist Society of Baltimore. I'm not sure to who I'm going to ask this question, because all of you touched about the will, specifically Leo. So we understand Joanna De Angelis is telling us if your will is weak, it's because you are not exercising it. And in theory and in paper, it sounds okay, makes sense. But when we are in front of that plate full of cookies, the will really start weakened. It's like so I don't know if you have like practical tools for us to strengthen our will in different situations. Let's call it temptations. How to strengthen our will.
The first thought I have, there is a will, there is a way, right? It's a saying. I think of course, Leo here can say more about that, but it's just that I want to share the saying that came to mind. And I think it's to have a motivation and a purpose. When you have something that you truly believe, you have something in mind, you need to put an effort, have this self-discipline, and work hard, and do not give up. I think you have to be a little bit hard-headed or persistent in order to achieve what you want to accomplish. But I leave my older brother here to talk more about that.
She called me old. Thank you. You wanna go?
The ladies first. Such a I was thinking that we start small, how it's like, I think even in that chapter that you brought, Joana de Angelis makes an analogy of the muscle, isn't it? That to have strong muscles, you have to exercise, and it's not just one time, it's many times, and every time you add more weight, if you are doing weightlifting. The will, I think it is the practical way of approaching it, because I understand very well what you're saying, is to make small practices, little things, so that you will every day increase, build upon that. And then you will notice that you have the strength that you have, the determination that you have, what it takes to tackle things that are more difficult. The most interesting thing I thought about will that you brought up, I never heard that before, was that it's an energy. It's the thought that becomes an energy, probably because it's the action. But start small, and build up.
Thank you. I'll share a story that I heard many, many years ago. One of our friends actually told us that one of his friends was avoiding a lot of the work meetings that they had. And this friend of ours came to his friend and said, look, why are you not attending to these meetings? Why are you not coming to the meetings and that we have? It's important, it's nice to, have the gathering and whatnot. And then the friends turned to him and say, look, I don't like to go because there's food. And whenever I'm near food, I can't stop myself. So it was a huge learning curve for this friend, because he then realized that this idea, and thank you for pointing out the beautiful chocolate cookies, right, is not something that's going to happen now. Perhaps we became aware of it today, but this is something that needs to be done yesterday. There's no way that we're going to get that if we didn't think about it, if we didn't materialize that thought of perhaps we're in a gathering that there will be coffee. Many Brazilians will have to drink coffee, right? There will be other goodies as well that we're going to like, and I will resist. If there's no premeditated thought towards such a thing, guess what? When you're near, the temptation will win us, right? So this idea starts yesterday. It starts a month ago. We've just learned that to become a behavior, it takes a long time. So we have to prepare ourselves. Where am I going? And this connects with the thought. What am I going to encounter when I go to this location today, right? What am I going to encounter tomorrow at work, right? And so on and so forth. So I think the idea that we need to bring to ourselves is that when we're dealing with temptations is for us to analyze what possibly can happen. That's not to say that we're going to live in a state of alert. Oh my God, this is going to happen. No, but at least connect with yourself. I like sugar. I like cookies, right? So what can I do to minimize my experiences with sugar, with the cookies? And it's hard, right? I'll finalize with one thing. I once also came in contact with someone who was addicted to drugs. And the analogy that this person gave me was exactly it. Imagine yourself in front of a beautiful cake, whatever cake you like, and I start thinking about the cake. That's exactly the same thing when you're dealing with drugs. And that to me snapped out of my idea of when people are dealing with drugs. But we have control. Spiritism that tells us that we have control of it, right? We see Joanna de Angelis. It may be weak at first, but we have to keep trying. So it starts yesterday. It starts months ago, right? For us to get to a gathering like this and look at the cookie and say, you know what? I'm going to treat myself. I'll have one, right? But that will be my quota of the day of sugar and whatever that is in life. It's not only sugar, but anything that debilitates us morally and for sure physically. I hope that helps.
Let me just clarify why I call him older brother. It's not biologically speaking, it's because he has more knowledge and more experience, more maturity than myself, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you to all the speakers. Next question. We are open. Yes, please.
Okay. Michelle Soto from KSS. Actually, Leo, I don't have a question. I have an answer. I am here because I want to. When you asked, why are you here? Because I wanted to. I had so many things going on in my life right now, just from the moving back from overseas, and I made sure to be here because I wanted to. So thank you for your lectures.
Thank you.
Who is next? Please, warm up. Okay. I have done my, yeah?
Sylvie Porphyre with Spiritist Society of North Beach. So I have a question or an opening for the panel. So we are learning about moral transformation, and the question, or more the broader approach, would be, so we have victories, right? And then we have setbacks, and from victories to setback, we finally progress. When you're in a setback situation, sometimes to be able to come out of it, you need to apply self-forgiveness. And I'd like to open up to ask you if you could talk to us a little bit about self-forgiveness for us to reset and be able to restart the process.
Who wants to start?
Thank you for the question. One thing that I think I didn't speak of is that we need to be kind to ourselves in this process. You know, it's easy to be kind. I'm sorry.
Speak a little louder.
Okay.
Please.
One thing that I don't think I mentioned during my presentation was that we need to be kind to ourselves. We are not perfect. We are not perfect. So we will make many mistakes. There is something, I don't know who said that, making mistakes, you know, by making mistakes we learn, by nailing, you know, whatever we are aiming to, by doing it right, we progress. So I think it is easy to forgive if we think that it is a journey, that we are not perfect. No one is. And that we have to be kind towards others, but we have to be kind to ourselves too. And forgiveness is being kind to ourselves. That's how I see it.
I think it's the idea of self-indulgence. And Joanna de Angelis tells us a lot about guilty and how guilty can be detrimental to us. So I think we need to be careful and be humble to say that we are in a journey. We need time and effort to grow, so just accept where you are now and keep working to transform, but without, punishing yourself. We cannot transform and become better, from a moment to another. And I even mentioned during my talk, if I have been committing the same mistakes over and over again through multiple lives, I cannot simply change now because I created an automatism, but I can start doing small exercises, to change that. And self-compassion, self-indulgence, self-love, it's very important, I think.
I think the idea of time, obviously, bringing the past lives into this process is super important, right? One thing that I would like to add is we often think that feeling guilty is the worst feeling ever, and it is. It can be very detrimental to us if we get stuck in that same thought, same feeling. But if we acknowledge that that is the first step for it to snap out of that problem, is the most liberating thing ever. For us to come and free ourselves to say, I really dropped the ball. I really messed up. It's a beautiful thing. That often in this world where we live right now, we don't see it happening. And to stay in that thought and to marinate in terms of what can I do now, right? So we go with the first step, which is, to repent. Look, I made a mistake, right? And then we suffer, right? That is the second level, the second step, which is to expiate that difficulty that we're going through, right? Or that we create for ourselves. And then there's a third one that we learn with Spiritism as well, right? Is to make right, to do the right things, to ask for a new beginning, right? That often we're so stuck again, so stubborn on what happened that we don't even look in the future, right? Again, it's that thought, right? And this is a behavior. This is something that takes time, as we talked about earlier today. But just that feeling to say, oh, I feel so bad. There are people in the world that they're doing wrong things. I'm not going to say malicious, right? But they don't feel that. To them, it's a normal thing. We also heard the idea of what we think it's wrong now. Some other places in the world, they still think it's okay, right? And it's the same thing with our thoughts, right? And I would add one more element here. We're not alone. The more we think that way, the more we act that way, we attract others that are just like us, right? They're thinking, vibrating the same way. So be kind to that thought. Be kind so much so that it will lead you to the next step, which is to make amends with yourself and say, you know what? I'm in an evolutionary path here. I deserve this moment of transition as well. So.
Compliment. I was just thinking while you're saying that, while you're talking, a thought came to my mind. First about guilt, that we need to think that at least if we feel guilt or if we feel the need for forgiveness, at least we are at that point that we recognize that, we did something wrong. But guilt, as Leo said, it puts you down, doesn't really help. But it's good to feel sometimes of remorse, I would say, because I think we should not feel guilty unless we wanted to commit that, the mistake, if it was on purpose. If it was not on purpose, yes, it was a mistake. We recognize, we feel bad about it. We should feel responsible for that action, but not guilt, because guilt doesn't make us act towards a resolution, to ask forgiveness or to ask, I'm sorry, I stepped, I did something wrong. And the same thing, it's with us. We need to be able to look and say, okay, I did this, it was wrong. I didn't intend to do. So what can I do? Be responsible. What can I do to make it better, to not repeat, to this and that? And it's a way to forgive also ourselves, because we are on this path. We are on this evolutionary journey. Still we live in a planet of, how do we say it? Say it?
Trials and expiation.
Trials and expiation. Thank you. So just a compliment.
Can I do one more thought? And I think this is the beauty of Spiritism for me, the concept of multiple lives. We are not going to solve everything in one lifetime. But when we put into perspective, we have eternity. So every new lifetime, we are going to have new experiences. We are going to get rid of all the bad habits. We are going to exercise and acquire new ones. So I think we need to be patient with ourselves, indulgent with ourselves. It's not simply accept our mistakes, but really accept our current stage of evolution and keep working to transform little by little. And look, imagine let's think about that together. Let's say I reach my end of life, I just have few hours, and I just realized I just made mistakes my entire life over and over again. But imagine the concept, the freedom that it doesn't matter. You did not waste your time because you learned it. So now you recognize you made mistakes, and you are going to have new chances, new opportunities to start over again in the spiritual life, or coming back, reincarnating, in a new physical body, to be educated again, to receive new impressions. So I think when you put into perspective, it makes much more sense. Anyone to add? No? Next. We hope we answered.
Great comments. Next question.
So if we have a question after, if maybe you want to do yours. And I had a question myself whenever, you have an opening like this. Ask something myself, but you can go ahead and do yours now.
Okay. So that comes from Lia's presentation, but I will ask any of you to. So Lia first made the comparison to our moral transformation with all the metamorphoses from the larvae to the butterfly, going through the cocoon and so forth, so on. Then she compared us to an onion with several layers to peel off. So my question is, the older we get, the more layers we get, I believe, more work to go down deep inside. So that means if we start early enough in life, are we done early?
Not necessarily.
Too bad.
No. I think it's just to understand our level of complexity. Many times we say, but And Paul says that, right? He said that the good I want to do, I cannot do. And the mistakes I don't want to do, I keep doing. Why? Because his current ego or personality already knows, his conscience already knows what to do, what he should be doing, what we should be doing. But we still are not able to. Why? Because of the past behavior, the automatisms that we have. So first step is to, and Cinthia covered that, is awareness, right? First, we need to become aware, or we need to recognize we made a mistake. After, we need to work on that. And to work, it takes time, it takes effort, it's not an easy process. You know, you need to be compassionate, be forgiving to yourself, but keep working intensely to educate yourself in order to improve. And this process, this journey, we cannot do alone, even though it's individual, it's personal, we cannot change others, we need to change ourselves. We can help one another because we can share our experiences, you know, and there are so many ways, as we discovered a little bit, how to transform ourselves. You know, it's self-observation, you know, it's self-analysis. You recognize and then you start acting on it little by little. Whatever you cannot accomplish now, you're going to accomplish in the future. But look yourself as an immortal spirit. You know, if you look eternity, you have plenty of time, okay? But if you just look one lifetime, it's not possible. It's not possible. And no one is asked to become a saint or angel. We are still trying to become a human being. And even that, we are still struggling. Okay, so let's just be a little bit better every day. Make efforts, right?
I'd just like to add, you know, as we're thinking about this, as we're, you know, we're starting this journey to, through moral transformation, to managing our thoughts, you know, our will and whatever, we come to a conclusion that we are our own worst enemy, right? And one of the stigmas about therapy, for example, is that I'm afraid to get to know myself. Because the more we know ourselves, guess what? The more we'll find out that, look, I have not only this trouble, but I have other issues as well within. And that can be certainly scary, but it's rewarding, right? The more you find out, the more you get to know yourself, the better we're prepared and all. But we defeat ourselves, we sabotage ourselves before we even start, right? So what I'm trying to say is that we have to, or we ought to at least try and give ourselves the time to start this journey. Like she said, it's not going to stop here. It's not going to happen. We're not going to find out about ourselves or get to know ourselves tomorrow, but this journey will certainly guide us to a better tomorrow, right? And I think that when we start to add the future into all this, things become easier because we're projecting ourselves a better version of ourselves tomorrow, once we know that there will be a tomorrow.
First, I would like to say that I love the idea of the onion, peel the onion. It's a very good analogy. I was thinking about evolution. It's in spiral, you know. We are going upwards. But so we learn something here. Let's say we learn about love, what we can understand about love now. And then as we evolve, progress, we will come back to that and we will learn another level of an understanding of love. And then we continue our, journey, evolutionary journey, and we will stop again, but we will learn another. So it's not like, let's say I want to be kind. But as I evolved, I will be understanding more and more about what kind is, how to be kind. So it's an ongoing process. And there is that idea that the evolutionary, the evolution of the spirit is from Atom to Archangel. So, and this is just what we can understand, because there is more after that. So that idea that we will never progress, I would say it's all infinitum, you know. There will always be something about a virtue that we can learn and refine and, you know, acquire, and then another round around the block.
Another image that I have in mind, it's about wounds. So let's say we have wounds in our skin or in our soul. You know, just closing our eyes to this wound is not going to, you know, to heal. So we need to really treat this wound. We need to clean. We need to give the proper care so then it can be healed. So of course it's difficult. We many times we do not want to face our fears, our traumas, but we do need to if we want to progress. In our stage of evolution, it is just normal that we have so many traumas, so many issues to be addressed. So we cannot be afraid. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to look for psychotherapy, for all kinds of tools that can help you, you know. But just ignoring it is going to make it worse because it's not going to be healed. Okay?
Thank you. Great answers.
I want to ask if you can speak a little bit more about the role of prayer in self-discovery, thought, and moral transformation. I'm Sabrina from AKSS. The question is the role of prayer in each of your topics. So self-discovery, with our thoughts and moral transformation.
I can start just because I remember the words from St. Augustine, who said that when we examine our daily activities, we should pray, you know, to ask for help, to ask our guardian angel, to ask our Creator to enlighten us, you know, to help us overcome our temptations or our imperfections. So prayer is one of the tools, very important tools that can help us, you know, really raise ourselves above this material life and ask for strength, ask for courage, you know. And the same way we can use for self-knowledge, we can use, you know, for the other aspects, which I pass on so they can complement here.
One thing that I would like to add is the idea of nothing start out of nothing, right? There is always a thought. There is, as we mentioned, there is always a action towards that, that driving force towards that action. So it materializes either in the physical realm as we can see it, or perhaps in the realms of fluids, right? An intention, a feeling, whatnot. So the moment that we start praying, we start to visualize the end point, right? Where we want to get to, right? So why is it important? Just that, just the fact that you disconnect, number one, from that negative thought that perhaps you had, or that moment that you're going through, and you start visualizing yourself and ask our mentors, ask Jesus, God, whatever we are connecting with, that that moment of realization that we're connecting with our higher self, we'll start to visualize. We'll start to say, this is where I want to be. Unfortunately, sometimes what happens is, even during our prayer, we're still connecting with the negative thought. And we're still connected with the other beings that are thinking and vibrating like us, right? And they hijack that moment from us, right? That's why the will to maintain in one thought, to maintain in one vibration is extremely important in this matter. I used to also question, in a positive way, I promise, a lot of the mantras that we hear from certain religions, right? In Christianity as well, Catholicism, we also hear the repetition of certain prayers, right? And I used to question, what is the need for that? And then I realized, look, that is the moment that the person has, or the capability that the person has to detach themselves from what is negative and to bring something new within themselves. And the 8 comes, just like she said. St. Augustine is very adamant about this idea that of us connecting with our mentors at the end of the day, right? To really do this analysis of ask. But what I would like to ask everyone, since you mentioned, is that during your moment of prayer, do not let anybody hijack that moment from you, right? Really propose to yourself, ask yourself, what is the end point? Where do I want to be? And visualize yourself there, right? We have all the beautiful books, right, that are sold by many great authors, and they do wonders, right? And we have the explanation, the reasoning behind why is it so with Spiritism, and we Spiritists without ourselves and without the process, right? So I think it's an amazing question, because it is through prayer that we will start that thought, and hopefully with our will, we will start to do whatever we have to do to change ourselves. Thank you.
And I would say that the thought is the way we communicate, with the higher spiritual realm, with God, with Jesus. St. Augustine said that. St. Francis of Assisi also said, start and end your day with a prayer. And when we pray, we ask, or whatever usually we pray to ask things, never to say thank you. But, we pray to ask God. And, but we need to receive the answer, at least the inspiration. We need to put ourselves in a state, through thought, to calmness, to meditation, whatever, to receive the inspiration. It's not just to ask. We need to be receptive. The other thought is, asking you shall receive. Jesus said that. And yes, we can ask help with our own journey on the moral transformation. I suggest let's put it in a project, as a project mode. So you choose something that you feel you want to improve, and we can ask help. We can ask help, and then the response will come in different ways. It is a book, it is a friend, it is a film, it is a talk. It will come. So it's true, we ask and we will receive. Yes. I hope it helped.
Any other comment? No? Question? Any other question? Yes.
Gabriel Souza with AKSS. Cinthia, in her talk, was talking about something that just caught my attention related to relative morality. It's a very, like modern talk. We've seen a lot of that in relation to the labor laws and everything else that we have seen change during the last years. So my question, actually, 2 questions. One of it is, how do we see the ones that actually had behaviors back then? They had a play on history And they have done great things to ourselves, but there wasn't a good side of it. There wasn't, it's great for nowadays. And since we are evolving as a process, are we to see things like that happen again? Is there going to be some kind of behavior that we have it now that will be seen as something to be ashamed of in the future?
I understand. I understood the first question. Let me answer, then you ask again the second. How do we see what was done? You know, I gave one example. There are horrible things that we did. It was not them, it was us. You know, we have to look and be, you know, it was a different time. We don't know the motivations. We don't know if the people did on purpose or pure ignorance. Who are we to judge? You know, I can judge myself. Others, I need to practice charitable thoughts like indulgent, be tolerant. It's not to say that we are, what's the term? That we agree with what people were doing. But the only person I can change is myself. You know, even to judge others, remember that passage about to have a speck in one eye, to the plank in Cinthia. So I think we should look to the past to learn the lessons. But who is not to say that we were the ones doing that? You know, so that is my take on the first question. What is the second?
It has to do with, since nobody is in this process of evolution, so are we to, in the future, to look back and nowadays, you know,
and look at us today.
A shame of something we have done from now on.
Yeah. I think in the future, we will look back and see, oh my God, what those people were doing. What were they thinking? You know, we talked about the evolutionary progress of the evolution being an up a spiral. You know, we will revisit things and do differently. But I think the most important thing is not just, yes, we will look back and we will see that we were not very good. But we are so much better than before. And I think in the future is very positive. It's a very hopeful thing. We will be better than today. That's how I think I could answer that.
Because we learn about the law of progress. So you keep progressing, and whatever we consider as barbaric in the past is going to be many things that nowadays we consider as normal. People in the future, you think that we are, you know, barbaric people as well. So, but we have a mix of different spirits and people incarnating in our old planet. So you can see it's really a great school because we can see the best and the worst all together. It is up to us which, you know, behaviors or side we want to take. You know, so we learn with our mistakes, but we also learn with other people's mistakes, right? So we hope we can do better, because I think the world is still very messy, you know, and there are many things that we still see nowadays that it was normal in the Middle Ages. So some people, some of us didn't evolve very much, you know, so.
I'll quickly add one thing, that in the business economic world, I mean, we'll see that there's a saying, the past predicts the future, right? And I know that the phrase can be, how am I going to say, pessimistic to an extent, and it is, much like we see, for example, the economy goes through cycles, right? We go through the ups and downs, and whatever happens, we're going through now the down, it's going to be up again, and so on and so forth. What I'm trying to say with this is that for sure we will see us looking back and saying, wow, what was I thinking? What we were thinking, right? As we are doing now. But I also am optimistic in the sense that since we know that the past predicts the future, we'll also then become a society where before it becomes a negative habit, something that is bad, we will stop and say, wait a minute, past predicts the future. So if we continue this road, we will see the negative effects, right? We'll become more aware in the sense that we've been there before. We don't need to go through this route. Not necessarily we're going to be falling in the same pit, but we will save ourselves from creating new negative things, in our lives. So it is a great question in the sense that it allows us to project ourselves in the future. And again, looking in the future, we're already projecting ourselves in a positive way that I don't want to do the same mistakes. I don't want to go through the level of guilt that I'm going through now. So in the future, I'll act accordingly so that we don't fall into some. I'll be better. Thank you. Yes.
Anyone else? Okay, so let me go to another question. So I understood from your lectures that the moral transformation is something that is individual. It starts with ourselves, our own will to do it. Now, is there any value in trying to help someone else in this journey, especially if a person is not showing any interest to change themselves, or if they have difficulties to understand it? Is there any value on helping or doing something?
Great question. And this is something that I would like to say, I'm not feeling guilty, but that I didn't go in depth with on my talk. In that book that I mentioned, Thought in Life, the third chapter, it's called Cooperation. And Manuel is very adamant as well about the idea that we need cooperation. And he, interesting enough, I just mentioned business. He also mentions that in any organization, we need a cooperation. We cannot, an organization cannot flourish if there's only a status, right? A CEO or a boss or whatnot. If that individual lacks cooperation, guess what? Nobody will follow through, right? So the idea of cooperation, the idea of exemplifying goodness, kindness towards one another, it's a key element, right? In us as well, to be open to follow the examples. Unfortunately, it's not the case on planet Earth, especially when we're, at work, right? We lack that kindness. We lack that, and most of the time we lack the individual being kind to us and say, wait a minute, I've been there, right? So I know your struggle. But perhaps the individual may not be open to this self-transformation. Perhaps the case is not that they're even going to work for self-transformation. They're there to make money, right? And I'm using work because, Emmanuel, again, brings the idea of an organization. Perhaps the individual is not going to the Spiritist Center to transform themselves. It's actually a gathering. It happens, right? But if we exemplify it, things will change. The matrix will be there. This happens with our kids. This happens with us in family. Not everybody's a Spiritist, right? But what we say, how we conduct ourselves, hopefully will change them, right? So it's not what others will do, but by helping others, we'll help ourselves. And this is not an egotistical way, but it's just the nature of life, right? We see how nature depends on certain elements of nature depends on one another. It's really important for us to pay attention and do the same thing.
Thank you. I understand your question in two folds. One, of course, we should help if we can. But the other is that we cannot help those that don't want to be helped. So if we force, we are violating their will and their right to be wrong. Stuff. You know, some people don't ask for help because they don't know how. So we have to be more, you know, attuned to, if we want to help, how to approach. But if a person didn't ask for help, doesn't want help, I would say, you know, allow them. It's their journey. They will learn with the experience. But of course, if we should help, if we can, be available to help. I think that's the.
I just want to complement a little bit what Leo was saying about the power of example. We really can inspire others with our own behavior and example, for the bad and for the good. People can look at us and say, I don't want to do what she does, or I want to do what she does. And we also see that as human beings, as social beings, we have the power to influence one another, to the point that influencers now, it's a profession. Many young kids want to be influencers, but what type of influence can we really give to one another? So I think there is a power, we call the power of one, because individually we really have the power to become better and make people around us better, you know? So we progress individually, but we also progress collectively. And I just want to add on this sense.
Something else that I remember as an analogy, like, if you do my homework, will I learn the lesson? You know, there are things that we need to go through. We cannot take away from the person the experience, but we can help them, hold their hands, have a kind word, an understanding word, give them the shoulder, you know, walk with them, but we cannot do the job for them. That's also important when helping.
Wonderful. So now it's the last question, and we have about 10 minutes. So each one of you can elaborate. What do you think is the biggest barrier, the greatest barrier for moral transformation?
One word, pride.
Yes. It's something that I was not able to cover on my slide, which I call negative pride. Because why separate that? Because there is the positive pride, which is to, you know, self-worth, to really be proud of your accomplishments, of doing something good, of perfecting yourself. But the negative pride is when I think I know better than you, that there is only my way or no way, you know, when I feel I am superior to you. So this is the negative pride, when I'm not able to see each other with equality, you know, when I do not respect diversity, when I want to impose my ways of doing things. So this is the negative pride. And if you are proud, you cannot really be humble, right? To learn something new, you know, or even recognize that you need to change. Because if you think you are perfect, you are very good, you are the best, you know, so why you are going to change, right? And another one, selfishness. When I just do everything for myself. It's not about thinking about yourself, but thinking less about yourself. You know, it's okay to take care of yourself, fulfill your needs, but you have to also, you know, share your gifts. You know, you cannot just keep everything for you. You know, whatever it's exceeding for you, it's missing to other people. And there are things we cannot use in a lifetime that we accumulate. So we need to ask ourselves why we have this need to attach ourselves, why we need this false idea of security, why we are so afraid that we are going to have our basic needs covered, So a lot of reflections for us here today.
I have nothing to add. This was great. Thank you.
I heard once a very funny description of what being selfish means. It is to think about me, myself, and I. I only think in these terms, me, myself, and I. The others, maybe.
Any other inspirational thought that you want to leave with us?
Not really much to add, and I think that what I'm certain that I would like to leave with this, I think this was an amazing moment for me in terms of thinking about will, thinking about, thought, will, and our powers, right? Behaviors, and when we talk about being through this transformative moments of our lives, and it happens every day. It happens every moment of our lives. We live in society. We're inserted in a cell of society, which is family, right? But do not doubt our powers. Do not doubt our transformation that we have to go through. The worst thing is when we allow ourselves to become a product of the environment, right? And we are, naturally we are, but in the sense that we stop our evolutionary path. And sometimes it can become actually an excuse to say, well, I'm not doing this because I have to take care of my kids. I have to take care of my family. All of us have to do that at one point or the other. But let's not forget that we are in this journey. We're here today because we want to do, right? Because we want to be here. However, there is a greater purpose. We have a greater purpose. We have the capability to control our thoughts, to control our will, to develop this transformation that we're going through. We're going through the cocoon, right? And to become a beautiful butterfly. And that is the thought that I would like to leave with you. And we mentioned here St. Augustine, and one of the things that St. Augustine said at the end of his explanation in terms of doing this self-assessment every single day is to remind ourselves that there is a tomorrow, right? And once we acknowledge that there is a tomorrow, we start to create a better version of ourselves, because we don't want to be, we aspire to be good individuals, as she said, right? We aspire to be someone better. What lacks sometimes is to even think about it, let alone the will, right? So think about this proposal of how can I be a better person tomorrow than I am today, right? How can I be a better person today than I was tomorrow? And if we do that before we go to bed and when we wake up as well, chances are when we get in front of the cookie table, guess what? We're going to say no, or maybe just have one instead of 2, 3, right? So we'll be better prepared. We'll be better attuned with our higher selves and our mentors to become someone better. That's what I would like to leave with you. Thank you.
So a round of applause to these outstanding speakers for their inspirational talks. Thank you so very much. It was great, really great. So before I leave the podium, I would like to ask for a few minutes of your attention to allow me to talk a little bit about the United States Spiritist Medical Association, that I will refer to as SMA US or SMA. So the SMA is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that gives voice to scientists and healthcare professionals to communicate their knowledge, their experience in how spirituality positively affects health. Based on the principles of Spiritism, the mission of the SMA US is to educate healthcare professionals and support research on the impact of spirituality or the impact of spirit or what some call soul in physical and mental health. The SMA mission is primarily geared to healthcare professionals because they are the ones who take care of our own health. So it's our effort to help them to understand that we are spiritual beings. But of course, our activities are always open to everyone interested in spirituality, on health. A number of recognized speakers, professionals have presented lectures in SMA events, and many of you, have been able to listen to them, like Dr. Harold Koenig from Duke University, Dr. Christina Puchalski from GW University, Dr. David Rosmarin from Harvard University, just to mention a few. During the first semester of this year, the SMA presented a series of webinars on and lectures by psychiatrists. And we asked them to especially focus on spirituality and mental health. And on the 18th, 2 weeks from now, we will present a live this panel discussion focusing on relevant parts of these 4 webinars through the lens of Spiritism. So we're not going to invite the speakers to be there. We formed a panel within the SMA to discuss specific parts of these webinars, and we're going to discuss that through the concepts of Spiritism. An important recent accomplishment of the SMA, which I'm very glad, was to be included as a subscriber of the Religion, Spirituality, and Health Scientific Interest Group of the NIH, which allow us to announce our events through their mailing list to the scientific community interested in spirituality and health, anyone who, not only the NIH people, but people out of NIH. The SMA works to promote a medical practice that understands the spiritual essence in the human being and that treats patients from the perspective of body and soul. If that's a model that fits you, if that's a model that you think it's right for you, please support the SMA in the effort to make this a reality. You can support by becoming a member, and please participate in the events. So don't forget, October 18th, 8 p.m., it's going to be transmitted by YouTube. Thank you. Yeah, here's one of our tech supporters. I thank the organizing of this event for giving me time to talk a little bit about the SMA US. And of course, I'll be here if anybody wants to ask any question about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sonia, and our lovely speakers. As we approach the end of our evening, I just wanted to take a brief moment to pay tribute to Allan Kardec, who is the codifier of this beautiful doctrine that brings us so much peace and understanding about the world around us. And we recently celebrated his 220th anniversary of his birthday on Tuesday, October the 3rd. So we're going to play a short video called Thank You, Kardec by the spirit of Humberto de Campos.
The lights, the lights, the light, 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 the light.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Kardec, as you receive honors of the world, we ask your permission to join our simple, loving homage to the songs of recognition which exalt your monumental work. To join our simple, loving homage. And all the atmosphere concerning the unfortunate parents found
Abigail, I just wanted to let you know that I have a couple of final comments at the end, so please stay seated after the prayer. So now I'd like to call Abigail Francisco, who is president of the Spiritist Society of North Beach, which will be hosting our symposium next year, and she will be doing our final prayer.
Good evening. I'm just gonna make a correction. Our next symposium is gonna be in 2 years. Not that we don't want to do every year, but we wanna give a chance for others to do other events for us to participate also. Was not a wonderful afternoon? I think you all can feel this beautiful atmosphere surround us, all this light and this good vibration. And with that, I'm gonna ask you to relax your mind and close your eyes. And let's elevate our thoughts to dear Mother, Father, and Master Jesus. We started this meeting with you, and we are closing it with you with gratitude in our hearts. We thank also to our mentors and the good spirits for helping to make this meeting a success. We would not have done without the help of you all. May the things we have learned today stir in our hearts, and may we put them into practice. As we depart from this space now, we ask to be blessed throughout the remainder of the day, and please guide us safely home. Let's learn of this gathering not to die, but instead, may they continue to ruminate within us and bear fruits throughout the year. And in your name, Jesus, we ask permission to close this marvelous symposium today. May peace be with you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We hope you've enjoyed being a part of this event as much as we enjoyed organizing it for you. As I said, the 5th Spiritist Symposium, which will be in 2 years, not one, will be in the charming bayside town of North Beach, nestled in the Chesapeake Bay's western shore of Maryland. We ask that you please remember to respond to the survey when you receive it from us. Don't forget to check for any of your possessions or your belongings to take with you. We also ask that you exit through this door here and not this one, since a lot of our tech equipment is plugged in on this side. That way nobody trips. And as I mentioned earlier, their library is closed, so we do not have access to the front door, but the parking lot is right here, so it's probably easier anyways. So thank you everyone so much for coming, and we wish you a very safe journey home. God bless. Daniel just told me that he's just sent the survey to your emails, so please look in your email.